Well, welcome into TexAgs Rewind presented by. Come on.
Yeti?
Yes! Yes, it is Yeti. That's Luke Evangelist. He does our news and social center, and I am David Nuno, your proud host here on the program. We had a fun show, so I'm going to let you tell us what we had on the show, but I want you to use a different accent per person. I want to see if we can just find out what kind of accents you have in you, all right?
Okay.
So what's one of the first talking points we had on the show today?
We had a former Aggie baseball player. Oh, excuse me. We had a former Aggie baseball player, Scheschuk.
Mr.
Scheschuk.
Is that Forrest Gump? What is that?
British, maybe.
British Gump? All
Yeah.
right. Oh, we had John Scheschuk. We're breaking down the season. What else did we have?
We had Tom Hart.
Oh, my God. That might be the best one we've ever had. Tom Hart from the SEC Network, obviously looking back at the SEC overall. He did make an interesting point talking about the SEC is doing exactly what they should be doing. Some people brought up the fact that Arkansas falling out of it, but he's like, hey, we Arkansas and Auburn, right? So There you go. There's a couple, but some others that won. And,
of course, we cannot forget about our good buddy, Billy Liucci.
Can you do a Latin accent in that same thing?
You're going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, I know. That's the best part of it. I don't know. We're just having fun with Luke here. It's TexAgs Rewind. Check it out.
Yeah, I would describe it the same way you did. To me, failure is a strong word. Of course, by definition, if you don't win the last game, I guess your goal is not achieved, so therefore it's a failure by definition. But I look at it differently. I look at it as a disappointment the same way you do. And also, as a former player, I understand what all goes into it from fall camp to coming back in the spring before the season starts and doing all that work and just the daily grind that's required to be successful at the level that A&M is playing. So it's never a failure from that perspective. Of course, there's many life lessons learned along the way. I know the listeners of TexAgs don't want to hear that, but that's just the truth of what athletics are all about. It definitely prepares you for things down the road of your life. But specifically to this season, yes, I think it was disappointing. We all wish that they would have won that regional and gone on to play Texas this weekend. It would have been a lot more fun for sure. And I think we all had some hope as they ran through the SEC tourney that maybe it was turning around. They could put a magical run together, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, but you know what? It's disappointing because of preseason expectations. But we have so much evidence throughout the year that would suggest that this team just didn't have the pitching to get where they got, to get to the SEC final there and to get here to the regional final. Am I right about that? Like, yes, from what we felt like back in February to now, disappointing. But as the team grew as the year went on.
Without a doubt. I think the disappointment for me as a fan was what we saw last week in the tournament, SEC tournament. We saw, a couple one-hitters. We saw some of the lefties really getting their sea legs under them late in the season. And that, to me, was hopeful because I felt the lineup could produce. I mean, that lineup was pretty salty. Even though the averages weren't too high across the board, there was some pop in there through and through. I mean, heck, you've got Minnick in the 8-hole.
I do like the direction that recruiting is trending. I like a lot of what I've been hearing. I think you'll see some kind of a shift in philosophy, let's say, over there in terms of how they attack this 23 class. And it's midstream, so it's not optimal. But I think you'll see A&M take a leap forward. And from what I heard from people that, again, they haven't really held back in terms, to me, of critique and kind of how things are going. And I don't think we've held back in terms of just their inability to get momentum, and just some of the juice from these visits has been lost from the previous recruiting regime. It sounded to me like this weekend from the same people that have kind of said that along the way, like, I don't know, it's just not now they said best weekend they've had in a while in terms of how it was received, the organization of it, just the vibe, the energy, and kind of how it appeared the players and their families enjoyed it.
Good.
And the engagement of your current players. So I think they had a really big weekend. I think they probably showed up for work on Monday pretty freaking excited about how things went. And there were certain guys I think they made big moves with. It was a huge O-line weekend. We talked about that. And Howell and Bronny have a ton of – Howell in particular, I told Bronny, you're flying back from your little California vacay this weekend, going and looking at the Full House and Mrs. Doubtfire house.
I gave you a little props. that you texted me as it was happening, and I think many people had the same thought. But like that little sequence was the 6th inning, with Trevor, a couple guys on, 3 strikes or 3 pitch strikeout, and then obviously the triple to start the next. That was kind of where the air came out of the bubble.
Well, at 2-1, well, it did turn out to be the winning run. Who knew? But at 2-1, I didn't think at that point I wouldn't say like the air came out. They still had 3 more at bats, if not 4. I think 3. You wouldn't have said the air came out down a run with at least 3, if not 4 at bats left. But it certainly felt like that was a major momentum change in both dugouts.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely felt like that swing. A&M had momentum. Or not, they didn't have it. They were that close to grabbing it. You had runners on the corners. You had the heart of your order coming up. Hey, if Werner could have even just got on, and then you bring up Jace with the bases loaded. I mean, Jace came up 4 times to lead off innings last night. Got 3 hits. I mean, for your cleanup hitter to come up and have a night where he gets 3 hits. He had hit a home run the night before, led off the game for him anyway with a home run, and to come up the entire game without a man on base is rough, man. It's really rough, and especially when he's the only guy last night, really the only guy that was hitting. And I mean, I thought the storyline of this regional for A&M, and I know they hit in that first game against Fullerton and in the second game against Stanford. And then the bats just went inexplicably quiet.
How would you sum up A&M's baseball year?
Well, I think it was successful. I really do. To go on the run that they did, to figure out who they were once they got to Hoover and find guys to step up, given that this is still very much a rebuild. And I know the transfer portal has changed things, and you can get guys in immediately, but still college baseball is the slowest moving from a recruiting standpoint of any major college sport. It had to put in a rule change to convince people that you couldn't take commitments from 8th graders. All right. So that's how far out coaches are looking and how far out rosters are being put together. And those elite products, those elite players, they're gone. They're gone real early. So it takes maneuvering it's like, turning around a battleship here. Individually, I mean, a lot of guys had a good season for A&M. I thought Nathan Detmer was fantastic last night. 8 strikeouts. He allowed the home run right before he left, but thought he gave him 6 solid innings, given the fact that I think he's been pretty banged up all year. And he just goes out there and guts it out and gives his best, even if he doesn't have his best stuff. I thought that was really impressive for him. And Jace Lavallette's a guy that's, somebody you could build around without a doubt. I mean, he's going to be a superstar. So taking those 2 things into consideration, where Schloss is on the recruiting side of things and the kind of talent that they already have committed and they're going to bring in, and then, mix around in the portal a little bit. It's good times to be A&M baseball.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. So let's assess where the SEC is at right now, some of the highs and lows. How would you assess how the conference is done overall?
Right where they want to be. I mean, you get one host that loses in Auburn. You get a non-host that wins in Tennessee. So to me, that's a push. You never expected to win if you're a 2 seed. So A&M making it in. And by the way, Stanford's really good. I think we've seen that over the course of the weekend. And everybody else advanced. They took care of business. Kentucky had to come through the losers bracket. They had great crowds all weekend in Lexington. LSU's got 2 of the top picks in the draft. It seems like they figured out their pitching, but that's going to be a really interesting super. And South Carolina was one of those teams that did all of their work early in the season and faltered late. So they had a lot of people doubting whether or not they were a deserving host.
All right, Luke. Does anybody ever call you Lucas?
Never.
Good. Well, that's going to be our new thing. Lucas, I'm kidding. Tell the people what to do.
Like, comment, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. And Dalton is coming into the studio to say something.
I did not authorize Luke Gemstone being on air.
Luke Gemstone. I didn't know what that was at one point. But
That's not my nickname, actually.
actually, you can't pick your nickname. It just happened. It's TexAgs Radio or Rewind, whatever we're called.